Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good day wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the next episode of No Dice, No Glory. Sponsored by our jobs that actually pay us money, we're coming to you not at all live from an abandoned arms factory deep under a mountain in West Virginia. We are proud to proffer to you the finest in wargaming coverage. Without any further ado, let's get this show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tales of the Sale, episode 11. And we're going to call this episode Making Our Lists and Checking Them Twice because it's almost Christmas. As we record this, it is December 11th, a Friday night. And since we're all, gentlemen about town, we are excited to be here late on an East Coast night. So joining us from his farm in the middle of nowhere would be Glenn. Say hi, Glenn.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
Mr. Van Meter has probably been the busiest of all of us in the interim between episodes, but that's a low bar. Also joining us from a secure, undisclosed bunker somewhere is Tyler Stone. Say hi, Tyler.
Hi, everybody.
And I am Tom Chairborne Mullane, and I'm joining you from my imposed quarantine, where I'm not sick, I'm fine, but I'm here as a precaution, which means that I really have run out of excuses not to paint all the things that I've primed and cleaned and prepared. So
flute.
flute. Part of me doesn't want to finish the flute because I know you're going to judge me for not rigging it correctly. And I deserve that judgment because I've actively made fun of you and then told you to do things that were more work every time we've had discussions over the paint things.
Meanwhile, we're just judging you for not having finished.
I don't know. I feel like you're waiting to judge me on a deeper level. But
hey, a finished ship with full sail looks very pretty, and I can tell you where to get sails for not too much money.
Actually, I bought the sails from the guy who makes them, and they're super cool. I like them, but I just haven't gotten to use them yet because I need to put the rigging up.
At this point, I just bought sails for my flute, and I'm gonna have to be painting and rigging that soon.
If you beat me, that's a deeper shame than I think I'm capable of understanding.
I think we all started.
I think the bark will have to forego its name of Shame of Mullane, and I'll have to upgrade to something bigger.
Lord, please no. Please no. All right, so let's start with Glenn. So Glenn, talk to us about like what you've been up to since we last recorded, which would have been November 3rd,
early November,
by my estimation. So this is before the Kickstarter concluded. We've had a couple of paint and chats that we've gotten a pretty solid regular following of people. It's nice to see projects that people are up to. It's nice just to kind of chat. It gives me a big motivation to do stuff. I wasn't at the last one, but otherwise I've been at every one. So what have you been doing since the beginning of November?
Well, in late November, I believe on the 22nd, a friend of the show, Preston Jacka, and I headed over to Critical Hit Games in I guess it's Abington, Maryland. I know it as Box Hill, but that might just be like the name of that like street corner. And we held demos, and I showed up expecting this to be a standard thing where like I've got one table where we've got, a couple armies I put out, and Preston was going to bring more stuff so we could have a second table. We were going to run a couple people through, and I knew that the community up there was growing and that they needed additional people, or some players had their own stuff, but weren't sure anybody would be ready. And we show up and have 14 players, almost all of them with their own armies. We only had to loan out a couple forces to additional people who didn't have armies and wanted to try it. So Preston kindly ran a C game between a couple of players, like just an introductory like Bark versus Tartana basic game, while I got a half a dozen land battles underway, getting people matched up against each other, playing, etc. And we played a couple of those land battles starting in the early afternoon. Preston got his sea demo through, and then we wrapped up with plenty of time left to go. So we decided to do an epic sea battle involving all the ships that Preston and I brought, which ended up being 2 sloops, 2 Tartanas, and 2 barks.
That's pretty awesome.
It was
a lot.
Yeah.
It took, it was improv. We were not planning this, so it took me probably 40 minutes just to get lists hammered out, because I was providing models for 4 different ships. But, yeah, it was a lot of fun. We enjoyed it. Everybody had a blast. And we ended up closing down the shop. It was, like I said, it was great. We did a full battle. I did a full battle report that we posted to NoDiceNoGlory.com. And so if you're interested in details, you can read them there. But I'm really excited that the community is growing. The store is a bit closer to Preston, so I believe he has applied to be a quartermaster so that he can take over, because I have my plate full with the half a dozen other stores west of Baltimore. But
So you're gonna divide and conquer.
Hopefully, we'll make Maryland the truly pirate state it should be.
Well, if you've got 14 people coming to an event like that already have armies, then you've got a lot of potential for growing the game, which is really great.
Yeah, most were from the store, but several were transplants, like even from my own store, which is closed and won't do COVID. They won't do gaming until COVID vaccine time. So they're going to be closed at least 6 more months, I think.
How far a drive was this for you, anyway?
Better than I thought it would be. I think it was only about an hour and 15. Which, to be fair, I'll point out that my home store of games and stuff is an hour, so not that much longer.
Yeah, that's about my drive to get games in.
But
all right, Tyler, what have you been up to?
I have not been able to get out to any of the local game stores. All of ours are still shut down. In fact, our state is going into another round of like the more severe closures and everything. So I have been obviously painting during the paint nights. I have some ships that I still need to get finished up. I have a flute sitting on top of my own bookcase, which is something we were talking about before we signed in, or before we started recording. And I've been doing some Firelock articles for No Dice, which has been tricky because, not dissimilar to our podcasts, if you're not playing games, it's hard to write stuff up. But I have been using either the solo rules or the scant opportunities I have to play. I do have a battle report that should be coming out right around the same time that people would be able to listen to this. And that kind of previews the French army faction that we're getting in the new stuff up against some freebooters. And it's one of the larger Blood and Plunder games I've ever played. It was 300 points to a side.
I think one of the longer conversations we were having online before we sat down to record this was the conversation with Joe Forrester from Blood and Pigment, because you guys have a bunch of scenarios you want to test out, and we might be creating some articles on solo play run-throughs of some of those to see what they're like. But I still have not used the solo play rules. Like, are they pretty easy to play with?
Yeah, they're pretty easy. I still have one complaint that I still have is low cards when the opposing force, when the AI is losing. So it's kind of a chart. If you haven't used them before, it's a chart that you have in the document. And instead of having a hand of cards for the AI, you just flip the top card of their deck. And depending on what number it is within its suit, so 1 through 12, I suppose, it'll say, cards number 8 through 12 are this row of the chart, and it's aggressive move and so on. And so you compare the number on the card to the number of strike points that each force has, who's winning, so to speak. And that determines what actions you try to take first with the AI units.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So like their first action is always going to be to, try to move. Well, sometimes it's try to move and then try to shoot. If you can't shoot, then the next action that they want to take is to reload. If they have 2 actions, once they've taken that reload, then you start back at the top of the list, and it's like, okay, well, they're partially reloaded. They can shoot now, so they'll shoot.
Now, are we in the second version of the rules? I think like didn't Mike refine them a bit? Like they came.
I think we saw an early publication of the rules just for playtesting. Yeah, those of us in No Dice and probably Blood and Pigment, I'm sure that they helped as well. And then we got the rules as Mike uploaded them. And that's what everyone's had from the get-go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to try them. I think that's my resolution for the month.
Yeah, play them through vanilla first, and then you'll kind of get a feel for where you might want to tweak it a little bit just for how you play.
Okay. I mean, like the other thing we were kind of laughing about before we got on this recording was I chuckled when Tyler mentioned in the chat, he's like, oh yeah, I can get Jen to play with me if I like ply her with food or beer. And then I think Glenn said like, well, Jen's not as into playing these kind of mini games with me, and I thought of.
Well, he means his wife.
Yeah, yes. But like I thought about it, and I'm like, I don't know what I would have to bribe my wife with to have her play one of these games with me. And honestly, this is probably the easiest one to play because it's pretty. You can
pretty straightforward game.
So quickly. If there was one that I was going to try to rope her into, it would be Blood and Plunder. But I still don't think she's going to be willing.
The only easier one might be not bolt action, black powder. But yeah, I don't know what I would do to try and get Corinne roped into this. I'd have to buy her a new spinning wheel or something. It'd be absurd.
It would have to be a prodigious bribe, yeah.
Yeah. Not just, I cook dinner and give you some alcohol, because that's every night.
Well, that's kind of the nice thing about only needing to really ply her with food and alcohol is that I cook every other night as it is. We alternate cooking, so I just make something that I know that she likes, cover it in garlic and butter or something, and go to town. And I can play games. It's awesome.
It's a complete aside, but I just feel the need to complain about something because I'm locked in here. Like every recipe that tells you like, oh, just use like a clove of garlic. That's garbage. Okay.
Are you Italian?
A clove of garlic. Yes, I am. Okay.
Yeah.
And
always double it.
There's or more. Like it's. I'll never forget when I was over at my in-laws' house once, and they're very Irish. They're like adorable little leprechauns from the box, and I was going to cook dinner for them, and I said to them, "Where are your tomato products?" Okay. And we're talking about like, canned tomatoes, diced tomatoes, stewed tomatoes, tomato sauce, cans of tomato products. I'm sure that anybody who's listening to this knows what I mean when I say tomato products, but people around the world who might listen to this are probably more worldly than I am, which means that maybe they know that not everybody has these things readily available because that's insane. People don't have apparently what my parents had, which is literally a cabinet that only has tomato products in it. So, when you're a kid, you always think that, how you grew up is normal. So I learned, and then as you get older, you realize, no, it's not. It's not normal at all. So yeah, tomato products. So every recipe that says it should have garlic, this is my advice to you. It should have more garlic in it. Okay.
Yes.
because real pirates eat garlic, lots of garlic, and have tomato products readily available. All right.
Yes, to keep the sea vampires out. That's why they had so much garlic on ship.
Bingo. Sea vampires. Oh, such a problem. So I go off on this tangent because I don't have a lot to say. I mean, other than the paint nights, which I've had a great opportunity to get a lot of stuff done. I have been working on I'm working on not finishing the flute, correct? And also I will be mailing out my Secret Santa little mini project, and I finally have the tool I need from Home Depot to finish it off because I wanted.
You haven't done that yet?
What? I'm mailing it. Give me a break. That's not international. It'll get there on time.
Chinese New Year.
It's not Chinese New Year. It'll get there on time.
It'll be there by tax day.
I'm mailing it on Monday. But I wanted to include like a treasure chest objective, and I needed to be able to cut circles, and I needed to clean my way through the wood shop in my garage. So that'll be done. But goes out on Monday. But it's a fairly local address, so I'm confident that it's going to get there on time. Anyway, so with that
for reference, I shipped mine off. When was it? Earlier this week, and I apologize to the person who's getting it because they live in England, and the United States postal system is not, let's say, what it used to be, which is saying something.
That's true. That's true.
It may be arriving after Christmas if you bother to listen to our episode. If you don't, that's cool too. You'll never know that it's not going to be there on time.
Well, I am not shipping internationally. It is fairly local, so I'm confident that it will get there within the next 2 weeks.
By the way, for those who don't know what we're talking about, the wonderful Adam Horton each year organizes a Secret Santa swap amongst Blood and Plunder players. Most of us usually sign up, or at least I've signed up now that I have the opportunity to do so. And essentially what they do is you're given somebody's name and address, and you buy something small, like a blister, usually not worth too much, like dollar limit 15 or something. And then you paint it up and send it off to the person as a Secret Santa gift, hopefully arriving before Christmas. But hey, you might miss it due to international postage issues.
This is just one more thing that Adam Horton does that makes me like Adam Horton, because he's also the first guy, without fail. Every time Mike Tunez posts something that might be Blunder Monkey related, Adam will be like, "When are we getting more monkeys? Why has it been slow with the monkeys? Will there be multiple sculpts of the monkeys?" And I'm like, "Yes, okay, this guy gets it." So I'm excited to participate in this.
In addition to also being the guy who runs Steam Kraken Studios, which is the group that I buy all my sales from.
Yes, and they are great. I love those sales.
I fully endorse them.
All right, so we're 17 minutes in, and I'm trying to make notes of the time. I have my stopwatch going. Let's talk about the Kickstarter, because the Kickstarter is over. They are taking late pledges, and as recently as today, they started sending out tests on the Pledge Manager. Because one thing that you're going to have to do, if you are one of the 3,000 people, I think, or so, that pledged.
Two.
Maybe
I think it's only 2,000.
It's two.
And that's not even an only. That's
a lot of people.
It's still a lot of people.
You're going to get an email that basically lets you pick which of the options you want to choose, because you're going to get a certain number of boxes, and whether they're going to be. So what are the options again? You can turn them into what? The boxes.
So there will be the sailors, which are also in the starter, but you can get the standalone sailors, the militia, soldiers, the Native Americans, and right at the very end there, they did unlock the cavalry. So you should be able to pledge for cavalry. And I believe you should be able to pick up a copy of the Plunder Box if it's not included in your pledge already.
Yes,
so
some people
I would
were
have
lobbying.
to dig in for that.
Some people were lobbying Mike to make the Plunder Box an option. We don't know if that actually happened.
It might be too tricky for them to do, but it'd be cool if they can do it.
I mean, it's already a $25 add-on, so
that's
why
true.
not? And then also you can pick up the Legendary Commanders box if you don't already have one of those.
Yeah, that might be the one that I was thinking of.
I have to say, I like, and these soldiers are not the soldados from the earlier version. They're like updated soldiers, right? So these are like, their uniforms are slightly different, and don't they carry like different equipment? Or they look more modern, and I use that term loosely.
They
right?
should have, if I'm remembering correctly, firelock bayonets or
Socket
firelock
bayonet.
muskets with socket bayonets.
Okay,
Not
okay.
firelock bayonets.
Yes.
Those would be
They
interesting.
also have should have cartridge boxes, but in talking to Mike during the Cyber Wars interview, I believe the intention is that you should still be able to use them with your 17th century soldiers.
So it'll have like a little piece.
So they should have,
to-
they should have options to basically remove the cartridge box and put the apostles and things like that onto them. You don't need to attach the socket bayonets, and then you can just say that they have plug bayonets.
And the natives are the traditional, like it's basically the natives box, but it's plastic.
Or you
Right.
could be
Yeah,
an
it's
absolute
gonna be the Caribbean natives.
Caribbean natives, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Okay.
or you could be an absolute chronological heretic like me and just put them all with cartridge boxes. And when somebody asks you about their uniforms not being anachronistic, you just say, "Well, they're men ahead of their time."
Yeah,
Touche.
no one's gonna really,
Okay.
no one's gonna really notice it anyway. I don't think I've ever had anybody be like, "Oh, the cuffs on that model are out of." That's usually me. So if you don't know that guy, you are that guy.
You know,
It's
it's
usually
funny.
me.
I can totally picture Glenn staring off into the distance wistfully every time somebody like calls him out on some period specific detail on his uniforms. Just be like, they're men ahead of their time. Just staring off into the distance. And I can see you doing that like, without fail repeatedly.
Oh, I'll have some witty quip to send back, along
That's
with
why I love you, Glenn.
along with zero care about it.
So here's a question, and I think so. We all bought into this thing, right? And I will say for the record that I went the full Admiral pledge, went all the way. This is like all my hobby budget for the rest of the year, and well, I hadn't really had opportunity to spend a lot of my hobby money because I've been sitting at home. But this is the most money I've spent on any miniature game at one time, and I'm gonna make you guys go first because you have much more extensive collections than me, and your decisions may inform mine because I'm a follower. So, what are you gonna do when you manage your pledge? What are you planning on using? We'll start with Glenn. Like, what do you
Oh,
think you're
God.
gonna use when you manage your pledge?
Well, I'm gonna be honest. I know I'm buying a second starter just for demo purposes, so I can have everything in one box, painted up, ready to go, not have to sort through my collection every time I want to do a demo.
Which I thought was a smart idea when you told me
Right.
about that. Yeah.
So
yeah,
as a demo guy, I'm doing that. But that also leads me to considering doing a double Admiral, although I'm thinking that might be a waste with all the stuff that's included. I know I'm gonna have plenty of sailors between the two of them, even if some of them are demo specific and I'm never bringing them out. So I think I'm really gonna go for a couple, probably, definitely getting cavalry, maybe 2 boxes depending on how many cavalry are in a box. Probably 2 boxes of soldiers and 2 boxes of militia, maybe a box of sailors, and then of course the legendaries, etc.
How
So
many
I'm
boxes
probably
do you
adding.
get at Admiral level again? What's the deal again?
I thought it was +4,
Plus
4. Yep.
Okay.
plus the legends. Like that was figured in, so I guess it's just 5 choices.
Okay.
So something along those lines. So I'm definitely going to be upping my pledge a little bit, and I know I already pledged a little extra to get, even though I think Admiral comes with a copy of the really nice black book, the black leather-bound tome.
Right.
I think
yeah.
I will be purchasing an additional copy of Raise the Black just to go with the other regular copies I have, because I don't like to take the leather-bound tomes out for demos and things other than as a display piece. They're just too nice, and I'm too paranoid about the parchment falling out.
Okay. All right, Tyler, what are you getting? You tested it out already, I think.
I attempted to test it out, and then everybody else tested the Pledge Manager while I was at work today, and our VPN or whatever, our firewall doesn't let us through to Kickstarter. So I was able to test it when they sent it yesterday, and we were all getting 404 errors and couldn't sign in. That has been fixed. Fortunately, that's my contribution to the testing. I'm also in for Admiral, so I get the choice of the 4 boxes. I think I'm probably going to use the sailors that are already in the starter and just assume that those are my sailors for this purchase. So I'm going to grab the other 4, the militia, soldiers, cavalry, and natives, because each of those has 12 models except for the cavalry. We don't know how many are in there. I would assume probably just 6. Seems to be how Firelock does their cavalry. So, I mean, that's still going to be 12 of each, and I can kind of mess around mixing and matching and see what I want to do. I do like Glenn's idea of having a starter that is just for demo purposes. So if I add anything, I don't think I'm going to go quite as nuts as going double Admiral, but I might just add an additional starter in there, depending on what finances look like on my end.
Yeah, the more I review it now that I'm looking at it, probably not going to go full double Admiral. Just because there's, I don't need 2 of the leather books and things like that. So
I ended up accidentally doing that on the last Kickstarter. It was fantastic. Like, I think I have probably 4 sets of, and I know that's not even as much as other people have, but I had 4 of all of the Kickstarter exclusives at least. and so it's been kind of ridiculous. I have enough pirate casualties to, just make an absolute pirate massacre somewhere of the little 4 flat figures.
You guys give me a lot to think about. I don't know, man. So, I mean, so first of all, I have the unaligned box, primed, cleaned, and ready to paint. I have a bunch of pikemen and braves that are primed, cleaned, ready to paint. And I'm kind of getting ahead of ourselves here because a lot of people probably did what I did, and they went into the Kickstarter and they're like, yeah, and then you're like, shoot, this doesn't come in for like a year, and then you're like, since I have impulse control problems, I'm like, but I want more things that I'm not going to paint right away now, So I went out and used like doubloons and stuff to buy a Spanish starter, a ton of casualties, and a bunch of other stuff. So I have like 3 projects. And I think that one of the projects that I really wanted to do is I do want a native force, but the native force that I wanted to make is like a North American force. So because I'm really into the battles that are fought in New York, where I teach and where I spend a lot of my vacations, I think what I'm probably going to use the pledge manager for is mostly the militia and the soldiers. I have a box of cavalry, it's like a warlord box that has a whole bunch of them, and I don't know how much call there will be for like mass amounts of cavalry in the game, even on a war level game. So I might do like 2 soldiers, a militia, and a cavalry, and then wait for them to come out with like a starter for North American tribes if they wind up doing that. But or just buy more of the brave sculpts, because Mike did mention, I think, that the sculpts they have are very good, and I have like 3 or 4 blisters of those, but I'd want more to build the list. So I think that they're coming out with more sculpts for the Braves, or the North American tribes. But I
I think
wanted to do that. Yeah.
I think you mentioned the nieces being added soonish as
Yes.
a fire starter, maybe.
Yes, and I would totally back that big time. So I think I'm mostly professional soldiers, because I want to be able to play like French and Indian War skirmishes and stuff like that. Even though I know it's not completely accurate time period wise, I don't care. Like,
Are you sure?
Go ahead.
I feel like more militia would be called for, just being the podunk front that the colonies were at the time.
So you go 2 militia boxes and a soldier box.
I mean, see, personally, I would just check out the other 25 and go 2 and 2.
Yeah.
But that's me.
How
You
long
know.
do we have to update pledges? Like, when are they letting you fiddle with it? It's a
Mike
while, right?
I think Mike said probably until March-ish, and depending on production delays in China, etc. When COVID 2020 or COVID 21 comes out, it could potentially go later than that. But it's sounding like we get into the first quarter, maybe second quarter next year, easy.
And I wouldn't be going for the sailors just because, like you said, there's a lot of sailors in the starter box. But I think
Each
I
one
might
comes
take 24 out of the starter.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I might
already
go from
I already plan on using all the unaligned guys that I have to basically supplement my existing forces of Spaniards or Dutch guys. And then I think I will buy a separate starter box and paint the starter box up that I can use for demos and stuff like that.
But you also won't need any extra sailors because if you never finish painting your flute, you'll never need to crew it.
So I will I will say in a preview of what our episode will be in January that one of my favorite things to do when I listened to gaming podcasts in the past before I started recording some of these for the glorious benefit of so many other people is I used to laugh my butt off at the New Year's resolution episodes because the WWPD guys back in the day who used to do it, it was always funny because they would do their resolutions in January, and then you get to hear about them the following January about like what they succeeded at, what they didn't succeed at, and just to kind of preview the ribbing that I'm getting, like that wasn't even one of my goals was painting the flute.
That was just a bet
That was
in
just a
like
bet I
June.
made 7 months ago, that I didn't finish. And so those of you who are planning on tuning in next month, oh baby, are you in for a buffet of failure? Because at least Glenn and Tyler have some moments of triumph that I feel they can point to, but for me, the field is ripe with failure. So I look forward to laughing at myself for those reasons, but I'll use this opportunity to transfer to so there's a long time between this Kickstarter shipping, between the Civil War, its plan for China, and as Glenn said, COVID 2021. But what projects are we planning on working on between now and
Don't forget when the Rush virus goes all I Am Legend or whichever movie that was, that the cancer virus turning everyone into zombies.
Crippen's virus?
What?
I think that's what it's called in the I Am Legend movie with Will Smith.
That was the plot, right? Is like they
Yeah.
hurry a cancer vaccine and turned everyone into zombies.
Correct. Yeah, it's like an unintended side effect. Bum, bum, bum.
Shocker. Oh, and I just found out from my friend the government shuts down next week, so we got.
All right. Well, then we have lots to look forward to, and we have lots of opportunity to paint things while we're holed up inside and everything's on fire. So, what are you guys working on between now and when the Kickstarter comes out? What are some things that you want to paint, or some stuff you want to get your hands on? Start with us. Go ahead, Glenn. Glenn, go.
Well, no, go Tyler. I always
What? No, no. Glenn can go first. I was expecting you to go first.
Glenn was ready.
Let's see how prepared we are.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say. Right now, I'm working on a side project that is surprisingly not Blood and Plunder related. It's actually I have to paint up some spaceships for a friend, whose talents lie elsewhere. Not with painting miniatures. So I'll be doing that. But then several gentlemen in my club are interested in Blood and Valor, so I'm going to try to actually get at least one force, possibly two, painted up for that. Since, spoiler alert, that was one of my goals for the year.
Sad trombone noise inserted here.
Yeah. Yeah. It probably still won't be done by January. But I was thinking, Tom, since it's the only way that anything ever seems to get done aside from paint nights, maybe you and I should start making more bets about what we can get painted or
all right. I'm down for that. I'm down for that. It motivates me. It totally motivates me. So I'm up for that. So
we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, I'll think about it. I'll think about it while Tyler's telling us what he's going to be up to between.
Did it
now
motivate you last time?
Touche. Only one of us won.
Only one of you participated.
That's not true. Like I painted the whole thing's painted. Like it got me started. I just didn't do the detail work and the follow up on it. I just got distracted. So
I'm pretty certain we recorded an episode talking about how you did not finish in time.
correct. Yeah. But I worked on it, which I wouldn't have if I hadn't made the bet.
Okay,
sure.
fair.
So Tyler, what are you up to? What's your plan?
As far as projects for the next year,
Well, not next year, just like the next month.
Just the next month.
next month.
What are we doing now?
Yeah.
Oh man. I would say just still painting. See, I have this thing between my family and Jen's and to everybody, and this is also kind of going back to what Tom said earlier on with when you're raised and you realize that other people, you think it's normal and other people don't. Growing up, the rule in my house was always that you pretty much don't buy anything in the entire month of December because there's a good chance that you're going to get it for Christmas or, however that works out. So for the rest of December, I'm just painting anything that I've got, like scraps, odds, and ends lying here around the house. And
of which I'm sure there's plenty.
Oh yeah, there's a lot to paint, and that's just counting the Blood and Plunder stuff. If I wanted to uncork the vintage Warhammer from the great old years of the early 2000s, I'm sure I could do that too. Yeah, so Blood and Valor, kind of similar to Glenn. Blood and Valor is something that's gone a bit neglected by the wayside on my end, which is a shame because I actually really like World War One. As much as you can like a war, I guess, but that period of history is fascinating to me. So I've been looking into what forces I want to do, if I want to focus on a particular battle. It's looking right now, because I found the Woodbine miniatures and they're beautiful. It's looking like I might be doing some stuff with Gallipoli or the Middle East, with the Turks and Anzacs. So I'm looking into doing that and trying to figure out how I want to make my table, because trenches kind of lend themselves to a more static table if I'm going to do trenches or if I'm going to do some kind of a village. I really like to do a village because I love urban combat, but World War One's not the thing for that. Usually any fights over a village were fights over the bricks that used to be the village.
Well, that artillery is not going to land itself. It's got to have some French village to hit.
Yeah, or just bomb the daylights out of the line.
What's intriguing to me?
Yeah, but what's up?
What's intriguing to me is that it seemed I feel like I'm hearing a lot of people say that they want to do Turks and then maybe Aussies or Anzacs for Gallipoli, and I mean like an absurdly high quantity of people talking about that over, I want French, German, British, that kind of stuff. Like even I was planning on doing Turks first and ended up grabbing Germans only because I wanted to get some demo sets together real quick 12 months ago. And knew that, Germans could always advise Turks because, of course, Turks would need some Westerner advising them.
Well, Woodbine does a line of French in the... Yeah, and I've been looking at that because they're kind of more similar to the early war French and like the kepis and things like that.
If you wanted to game mid-war World War II, you could probably use the same models.
Okay. Oh yeah, absolutely. You can just use them as Vichy French.
In that area, in the Levant.
Tanks included. But yeah, that's something I've been looking at because I do enjoy doing stuff like that. Like, hey guys, I'm putting on a Gallipoli game, or come check out my Gallipoli table, and it's like, joke's on you, it's French, not Anzacs.
Wah, wah, wah.
All right, so we're on pace here. I say my strat. So bets. Think about this. Bets. Okay, so I don't really know what the consequences are other than abject shame next time we record. But I would say that
Yeah, you already owe me a dinner.
yeah, I already owe you dinner. That's true. I would say that I want to paint up my unit of Braves this month, which is 8 of them. So I want to get that done by the time we record our New Year episode after January, which is probably going to wind up being we're not going to record on New Year's Day because I will be hungover. So we can record.
Well, the last one was on the 14th of January, so let's just aim for the first half of January.
Okay, I would say let's aim for the 8th.
Hold on. Well, let's
98.
also consider our paint night schedule.
Paint night is next Friday.
Well,
We're recording this on the 11th, which would be
yeah, theoretically, it's also New Year's night, which probably isn't going to happen.
No. New
Chewing
Year's
up
night would be
podcast time on
Thursday.
scheduling.
No, not
Thursday.
New Year's Eve. New Year's night.
Yeah, it's New Year's night.
The first is technically a paint night, according to the 2-week schedule.
Yeah, why not?
Hungover painting. Awesome. I'm there.
Yeah, hungover painting is
Gonna be
I'm not
full
gonna
of
say
pork
it's
and
not- I'm not gonna say it's
sauerkraut.
painting, That's a lie. It's not best painting at all. Well, we can always move it to the 8th if we want to. We could skip to the holidays and come back to it, but we'll post and see who's interested, maybe. But I don't know. We'll talk about it between now and then. But we're definitely meeting the 18th. We'll get people on the 18th for sure. All right. I'm penciling it in.
All right.
Okay. So the painting bet, I'm going to be painting up a unit of Braves, and my goal is to be done and to have sent you pictures by January 2nd. That's going to be my deadline. So this gives us a chance to recover from the horrors of New Year's Eve, should we decide to celebrate insanely. And then, Glenn, what are you going to paint by the
I'm
2nd?
sorry. I just got back in. Sorry,
you got-
guys.
you're booted.
Living,
That's fine.
disclaimer, I live in the middle of nowhere and use very basic internet stuff, and it cut out for a second.
So me and Tyler were figuring out what the deadline is and when the paint nights are going to be. So my goal is painting a unit of 8 Braves by January 2nd, which is Saturday. And I'm going to send you pictures on Saturday. So what unit are you going to paint by January 2nd?
Well, are we? Why? What's the significance of the second?
It's just a deadline. It's after New Year's. It means it's like been 3 weeks or 2 weeks.
Okay, that's fair. January 2nd. You know what? I have a unit of 12 Braves sitting on my desk that just they're primed and have like the tan animal skins done, and that's it. So you do your 8, I'll do 12 because mine are already started.
Okay, mine are primed as well. So I would say
No, I think 12's fair. I mean,
all right.
it's no great difference to me to do an extra 4 guys. I did a whole extra boat last time.
This is true.
Okay, if I win and you don't get it done, I would like you to paint a battle mech for me.
A battle mech.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
And if I lose and don't get it done, and you manage to get it done, then I will create a piece of scatter terrain for you.
Why do I feel like it's going to be that thing that was typed out earlier?
Because I already have it halfway done.
Of course it is.
So for people that are not reading the show notes that we have here, I have grand plans to make Glenn create certain bucolic Norman Rockwell style scenes that I imagine occur around his farm all the time. So I imagine that for somebody in Glenn's part of the world in Maryland, that hobos are a problem. And I imagine that his wife has had to devote significant amounts of energy and time to fighting off hobos that are trying to steal pies left to cool on windowsills, which, as we all know, is the number one. I mean, it's like catnip.
That's not a move of hobos.
This is real. This is real. These are real problems. All right. So, but I'll create a piece of scatter terrain. If I fail, if we both complete it, then I guess like the stakes can get raised for the next one. But we set like a new target.
Double or nothing.
It'll be like a double or nothing. Yeah.
If we both win.
If we both win, yeah. So
It's fantastic because this means that everyone loses.
Yeah. I like it.
I like raising stakes.
I like it. Okay.
Are we just going to I think maybe we'll just aggregate all previous.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So
that sounds great.
I'm making a note.
Tom's going to have to throw a convention just for Glenn by the end of it. He's going to have to provide food.
Like a giant paper mache head. You run through the beard.
It'll be Blood and Farm Con 2027.
Blood and Farm Con. All right. So we're 45 minutes in. We promised people that we would go over missions, tactics, and strategy for different scenarios. So today we're going to be talking about control the field and take and hold. Tyler, do you have your book with you?
I have my book open. Yes.
All right. So Glenn is in the process of codifying and typing down the promises we've made to each other, for they are sacred. But so let's have you talk about control the field. If you want to like walk us through what the scenario is and how it works.
I think last time we just kind of read through the setup. Do you want me to do that again? Just
Yes,
kind of
absolutely.
the generic rules to keep everyone up.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so control the field. One force is attempting to outmaneuver the other in order to gain the advantage and drive off their foe. The entire board is land terrain. No specific terrain setup is required. If you're playing on land, if you're playing on sea and amphibious, obviously that changes. I think we were mostly focusing on land for this first run through.
Yep.
Deployment.
Yes.
The defending player will choose one board corner. The attacking player will deploy in the opposite board corner. Before any units are placed, an objective marker is placed in the center of the board. 2 more markers are placed each 12 inches away on either side of the central marker along the center line of the board. So if you've got like a 3x4 board, you're each going to be standing on one of the 4-foot sides, deploying in a corner, and you're going to be placing your markers along the 4-foot long center line. Tom's a teacher. Hamburger, what is it? Hot dog style.
Hot dog style.
Yeah.
I love that you assume that like I was like Tom would know the technical term for this.
Yeah, the technical term for this, hot dog style. Yeah,
hot dog style.
Yeah, my family are all 3rd grade teachers, like little kid teachers. Tom's like high school teacher, and I'm sure that you still use that. Like, all right, you idiots, fold this in half.
The irony of it is that your family is probably far better at classroom management than I am. I don't have to deal with little kids that are like picking their nose and eating it. I mean, they still do that, but it's easier to, have consequences for them.
So the game length for this is 6 turns, and the objectives. The attacker and defender both share the same objective. Force will gain a strike point if the enemy force has units that are not shaken within 4 inches of any 2 objective markers. And that force has no units that are not shaken within 4 inches of the same objective markers. So it's best 2 out of 3. You're just trying to capture the 3 flags. If you play any kind of online gaming, pretty bog standard scenario.
Now, I will point, due to personal failures previously accomplished with this mission, because we talked about this before, if you're shrinking the field to a 3x3 standard game for 100 points or anything less than 200, like it says in the rulebook, you can't simply cut the middle foot out of the middle of the table and just measure your 15 by 15 deployment zone in each corner. You need to make sure you take 6 inches off of each board edge on the map, so you actually end up with a 15 by 9 deployment zone. Otherwise, you start about 6 inches away from your opponent, and it's whoever gets to sneeze first gets that second objective.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is something to point out for those who aren't looking in the book and reading along with us. It says that you're deploying in opposite corners. you're not actually deploying in opposite quarters. So you don't get a full quarter of the map. You get the, like Glenn just said, the 15 by 15 or the 15 by 9. So there is a little bit of a gap. If you were deploying actually quarters, you would be able to just step onto one of the objectives because of how they're placed along the center line.
Yes.
So, what are some tactics you guys would recommend for preparing for a mission like this? What kind of list would do well in a scenario like this? Let's start there. What kind of lists do you think would do well?
Tyler?
Yeah, I'd say this is one where you might want some of the units that have like the Vanguard deployment, like your Forlorn Hope, so that they can get that extra sprint in early on. And the way that I would play this tactically, I don't know that I would want cavalry quite as much in something like this, because they're not usually good at holding objectives. And when we get to the tactics, I think it kind of depends what you're trying to do. So I would be looking for vanguards, anyone that can get on those objectives quickly, and you're going to want big, durable units to hang on to them, because if you go shaken, you don't count.
Yeah, the low shoot save of militia is probably not your best bet here, unless you're just trying to form a fire base somewhere. Although I would say cavalry might be actually useful if you're coming in from, starting them less on the objective line and waiting a couple of turns and swing them out wide to go for the back objective could be a very good use for them.
Yeah, kind of run them the long way.
Right.
Along
So if
your
somebody does
board
play
edge.
militia or more of a shooty unit, they tend not to save as well in combat. So yeah, it might be good to kind of J-hook the cavalry out and around to come in from behind and grab the back objective, since most people will probably be expecting most of the melee contact at the middle.
So this also means, by definition, that you'd want to not have small units and stuff like that, right? You have to wait to the bigger ones. Hold on 1 minute.
A bigger unit, I think, because it's just shaken. So I don't think that it's going to be that you want necessarily units that are durable so much, or I don't think that you're going to want units that can take a lot of casualties. I think you're going to want more units that aren't going to go shaken when they take casualties. So guys with higher resolve. And
Okay.
you might want to actually spread out the number of units that you have, so that, if they shake one unit, you have another one standing by the objective, potentially.
I'm really glad that we're having these conversations about these scenarios and stuff, because hilariously, and I will bring this up again, one of what seems to be the more achievable New Year's resolutions that you guys reminded me of was that Tom would win a game of Blood and Plunder, and yet it did not happen. So I really need all the tactical advice that I can get, Tyler. So I'm gonna build bigger units, because I feel like I've had the mistake of, I want a lot of little units, and they're always more fragile than I realize they're going to be. And so, I mean, there are some instances where it benefits you having all these small little tactical units, because you have more cards, you get more activations effectively. But
Yeah.
in a scenario like this where you're trying to hold ground, I think you definitely want the meteor units. And like Glenn said, the militia are not your best bet for a scenario like this.
Well, not for necessarily holding the front objective. I think militia would do best in their general role, at least for the French, Dutch, and English, in providing a fairly solid fire base. And I say that not because they're great shooters, just because anytime you take militia, they're cheap, and if you're firing with any kind of penalties for range, they quickly reach you need a 0 to hit. So I consider them just a cheap way to get musket shots downrange.
A militiaman shoots just as good as a buccaneer at maximum range.
Right, or anything over like 12 inches. So
Yeah.
They are cheap musketry. Although Milicianos may not be the best for that. They might actually just be better to get a bunch of bodies into combat.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
like
the Spanish are kind of
combat.
an odd list.
So, but then, lance arrows, etc. So, yeah, I would just use your militia to bulk out your list, but, again, they tend to have bad shoot saves and terrible resolve. Well, not
I just
terrible.
got the Spanish starter box, so I'm curious to see how these guys play because I haven't tried them yet.
Maybe that should be our next bet, Tom. Who can get the Spanish starter box finished?
Ooh, yeah. Okay.
I mean,
is yours completely unopened, not touched?
I haven't opened one, but I think I can put together all the stuff that would constitute one.
Okay.
That makes sense.
It does.
I stupidly bought them piecemeal.
So, tactics wise, Glenn, are you thinking like to grab the nearest objective to you and push forward, or
Well, I think if you're building the list just to do this mission, I think you can go two ways. One of which is, just try to push forward as early as you can, get that ace on turn one and move a unit up to contest. But then again, you're looking at a unit that can stay with some staying power. Or I really think that another option to go with would be to try to do that, what I was talking about, where you skirt around, don't necessarily contest the second one, put up fierce resistance at your own objective, and try to J-hook around
from the back. Yeah.
Because, you're still gonna, the thing is that, for anybody used to like really mobile warfare, you still need a force to pin that middle objective. So you still need somebody to go in there and threaten it so that the guys trying to take that can't just move away.
Right.
But yeah, having a unit that can get around, like a faster unit, like something with scouts or cavalry, trying to get around the edge. So maybe you deploy them against your board edge as far over as you can, and then diagonal for it, or even shift along your board edge and then go in.
Right.
Of course, if your enemy's taking cover behind a wall near the middle objective, they might also be able to outflank them and get rid of that cover save. Or I guess that's how we refer to it. Reduce their save.
I think setting up the table for this one would get really interesting depending on where you put the cover. Because if you put all the cover in the middle and you just kind of leave the two side objectives in the air, it could kind of turn into a mess.
Yeah, and I think again, if you go to the 3x3 table for smaller games, you're going to need to set these objectives up before choosing your corners, just because I think that you're really going to have to. It could go either way. There's no true center line. There's no long center line in a 3x3.
Oh, right. Yeah. Tactically, anytime I've seen missions like this, because this kind of mission shows up in, obviously a lot of tabletop games have a similar mission to this one. This is pretty straightforward. Like, if you design games, you've probably thought of doing this. In that case, anytime I've seen this, I've always liked to kind of push hard for the second and third objectives, the ones furthest from me, early on, and assume that if I don't grab those, I can always fall back to the one on my own side of the board. Because I don't like giving my opponent that first free objective and then having to fight over the middle, or having to hold the objective in my own board edge. Like if I were playing against Glenn and he was running his cavalry out to try and hit that back objective, I would rather not have a unit sitting there the whole time. I would rather just push hard.
I think my instinct in these games is usually to go after units, and that there are certain scenarios where you're playing to kill the opponent's army. But I think that because of the time limited nature of most of these scenarios, where it's like it's 6 turns, it's 5 turns, you have to play for the objectives, and so which direction you run, having a plan before the game starts, once you know how the victory conditions work, is really key if you're going for it in kind of competitive play.
Killing
also,
off units.
go ahead.
No, go on.
I was just warning people that it may get accidentally adorable on your end, because I heard you have an escaped toddler. So if you hear something adorable happening, just be aware that it's all part. It's in the script. It's in the show notes. It says toddler awakens. Item C, subsection 4, paragraph A.
It's one of the artificial time constraints we place on our recordings.
Bingo.
No, I was going to point out that speaking of killing units, that might also.
Speak of the devil, and it shall appear.
That's exactly right. We'll let him circle back when he's actually free. But in the interest of time, because we're at the hour mark now. So we just talked about control the field.
Okay,
right?
sorry. My last point. To Tom's point, killing the enemy. If they are on that center objective, you don't necessarily have to push them off. You just need to shake them to
okay. That's a good
strike point. So if you're already both teetering at a strike point, or they're already a strike point down, and you can shake that unit at the end of the turn, that'll be enough for 2 strike points, and that would mean that they take that check and could lose the game without actually losing it.
All right. So we did control the field. Let's talk about take and hold. So Tyler, if you want to walk us through this scenario.
This one's very similar to control the field. Both the attacker and the defender are attempting to control the battlefield by holding a crucial point on the battlefield, such as a hill, a beach, or the sea itself. Again, we're just looking at land scenarios. Setup. The entire board is land terrain, obviously. An area of elevated terrain, a group of objects, or a structure must be placed in the center of the table. Deployment. The defending player chooses one board edge, the attacker takes the other. Before any units are placed, an objective marker is placed in the center of the board in whatever terrain that was placed there during setup. Game length, 6 turns. Objectives. The attacker and defender share the objective in this one, as they did in the last. At the end of turn 3 or later, a force gains a strike point if the enemy force has a unit that is not shaken within 4 inches of the objective marker, and that force has no units that are not shaken within 4 inches of the objective marker. It's take and hold, guys. Not take and hold. It's control the field, but with only the center objective, and you're deploying along your entire side of the board.
Yes, nobody starts very close to the objective in this one. No matter which deployment you're doing, you get 6 inches deployment, and the objective starts at least 12 inches away from you.
Yes, you do not need to change anything if you shrink to a 3x3 either.
Also true.
When they say terrain in the middle of the board, it usually means like a building. Would there be any kind of like a fortification, like that wooden palisade fort or that cool little castle thing, or nah?
Oh, the stone tower, if you both hate each other? Yeah, that would be great. That is literally first one there, just beats off anyone coming after.
Yeah, this is actually the scenario that I use most commonly for the demos that I run. And I have the small whiz kids, like a gallows for one person, like a hanging for one. I've got one of those, and I usually set that up in the middle of the board, or I set up a well in the middle of the board, and I just tell people, like, all right, first one to get to that. And it's usually, if you can claim it, I turn 3 or later, that's where I end the demo. Because this is really a straightforward fight.
Yeah, this one is... There's not a lot of maneuvering here. It's just a lot of potential to get bloody. Maneuvering would really be based on any terrain that goes down, and obviously we can't tell anything with that. So yeah,
So I would say this doesn't really favor speed. It favors mostly. I would say that you need melee units because if you don't have units that are good in some kind of a fist fight, you'd better have enough firepower to shoot them off if they try to charge you. Because I feel like there's going to be a bloodbath dog pile in the middle of the board. Am I wrong? I mean, you played a bunch of demos of this, Tyler, so you'd know better than I would.
In demos that I've set up, if I set it up if I set it up with that center objective in like a town square, using it as either the gallows or the well, the problem that I usually run into is there's no cover out there. And I think that kind of makes an interesting game. It makes a tricky demo, and I don't do that. I wouldn't do that so much for a demo anymore. In a game against another player, if there's no cover in the middle, it really kind of turns into everyone trying to batter each other to the point that you can run someone out there really fast and grab the objective. They might want to countercharge you. It's like if every unit that you send to hold that well just gets shot to pieces and shaken, you're not going to be fighting for the well anymore. You're just going to be fighting for casualties. If the terrain's a lot more thick and forested and you can get into melee, then yeah, you're going to see a lot more emphasis on melee troops getting in there. I ran one where someone moved the objective marker, one of the players, instead of putting it dead center. They're like, hey, how about we put it over here and we fight over this canoe? And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. Fight over the canoe on the beach. And there were a bunch of palms and boxes out there used as cover, and it immediately turned into a fist fight because everyone could use cover to get close enough to charge.
And I feel like for a demo, that makes for a much more fun game, as opposed to just getting shot to pieces as you're crossing the field.
Yeah, as soon as you hop the barricade, you just get shot up.
Yeah, I feel like to Tom's point, it's not all about speed, but you do need to be like, if somebody gets there turn 3 or later, you start getting strike points. So it might be good to try and get a unit up there that has, I don't know, some, especially if the terrain's set up for melee, might want something up there with, let's say, a brace of pistols, just so they can constantly fend off charges.
Yeah.
Pikes or Lancers also might work here.
Yeah, that is true. Pikemen in a defensive stance would work. It's one of the rare uses for pikemen. If they're actually and not in a building, but as long as you're outside of a building, pikemen would be good because you just get them up there and you throw them in a defensive stance and just leave them there.
Huh. I mean, I have I have 2 sets of pikemen because I got another fire starter. So like I haven't used them yet. But actually I lost some of the pikes because my dog knocked over something and they fell between the cracks of the 100-year-old hardwood floors that I have in this office. So that sounds glamorous, but it's not. It's like rotted
pikes
floorboard.
down through the slats in the floorboard. Not fun.
Somewhere that's hiding somewhere in the next to some buried treasure in the floorboard. So I contacted Firelock and they were like, oh, here you go. And Mike mailed me the pikes. And it's funny because like you get this little package and it looks like a little package of like, I don't know, like cocaine. It's this tiny little pouch. And my wife's like, what is this? And I'm like, it's drugs. And she goes, no, what is it? Because she did. I know that she bought it for 0 seconds. And I'm like, they're pikes for 28 millimeter, Queen Anne's War era.
They're finely detailed tiny metal rods.
But I'm glad to know that there's one scenario in which these guys are useful because I want to paint them up.
Yeah. I was gonna say I don't know that I would run them in like a take all comers kind of list. I don't know that pikemen are something that I would normally include in a game.
But they have some fun niche uses, you're saying?
Yeah, this is one of the niche uses that you could use them for because, like Glenn said, with the brace of pistols, it's something that once you park it on the unit, they are always going to get those defensive attacks until they run out of fatigue.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Parting thoughts on Take and Hold or Control the Field?
they're both just really similar scenarios. Like I said, I like Take and Hold because it's a simple. If you're running demo games, it's a good demo to run. Control the Field, though, is a really fun game if you're playing against a regular player, a regular opponent kind of thing.
Yeah. Control the Field doesn't have the time minimum, though, so you could potentially be winning that pretty early. I mean, if you can inflict casualties to get that second strike point for the land game, since most strike points are available in C games. But yeah.
So here's the question for people that are holding the book in their hands, because I was too unprepared to physically have it in front of me. How many more land scenarios do we have, or are the rest of them C scenarios in the original rules?
We actually only have one more land scenario, and it is Encounter. Essentially, control the field with no objectives in the middle. You just beat the snot out of each other.
Don't we?
Yeah.
Aren't there scenarios in No Peace Beyond the Line?
There are. I have Raise. I have Amphibious. This Escort. Rescue. What else we got? There's different versions of it. Search and Recover. Plunder, which is totally sweet. And that's it. So we can do the ones from No Peace Behind the Line next, or we can circle back to the ocean ones. We can talk about that later.
Well, it's 5 and 5, so if we keep doing in pairs, it'll be, the last one here and the first one there, and then 2 and 2. And then we circle back.
All right.
The last one here is literally just a bloodbath. Like, you just kill the other guy. That's the objective. Just kill the other guy. You can go over it, but you're playing this game and you don't know how to kill the other guy.
It might be easiest for us to go over that
video about how to start playing.
Yeah. Keep in mind, it might be easiest to go over that one anyway next time once we're done laughing at each other for our resolution failure.
Right.
Because there will be a lot of things to laugh about when we do that one. For sure. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
So if we can get out of here in a hurry, I don't think we went too far over time on this one.
No, we are at
that.
1 hour and 11 minutes, I believe, is where we're at.
Nice.
Not bad.
4-minute wrap up. We can go for an hour and a quarter.
Glenn, do you want to throw out the shout out for the new upcoming releases?
Oh, yeah. So upcoming releases, we have gotten word that the American starter box for Blood and Valor are on pre-order from Phalanx. So if you're really into Blood and Valor, those are on pre-order. But as far as we know, there is nothing else from Firelock that's currently coming out in the next month.
Keep an eye on the Pledge Manager. That is, it's not really a new release, but it's something that you will see very shortly, if not already out by the time that you're listening to this.
Also true.
If this comes out early next week, like we hope it will, then join us for Pate Night on the 18th, which is our next one. 18th of December. It's Friday.
Yes. So that.
All right.
All right, everybody.
Out, Glenn. This is it.
Yep. Thanks for coming, everybody. We'll talk to you again next time as we all review everything that we didn't get done this year.
Thanks so much for joining the show tonight. Remember to follow us on Twitter at No Dice, No Glory, and keep the conversation going on NoDiceNoGlory.com, now featuring our own message boards. Have a great night, everybody.